Okay, so there has been this game called Schedule One, which I'm sure all of you have heard about. It's been making noise in the industry. But there are some people that are upset about how successful it has been. And it's not the gamers. Of course, it's not the gamers. The gamers love video games and they play games to have fun and they are enjoying themselves. It's not them. Can you guess who? It's the snobby, stupid devs from other companies. You're like, why is this game so successful? Why is nobody buying our stuff? Maybe because your stuff is trash. If you'd stop making trash, maybe your people would buy your game. So let's see just how Schedule One has been humbling the gaming industry.
Schedule 1 just humbled the gaming industry, getting over 400,000 concurrent players on Steam in less than a
400,000. That's already 10 times more than Assassin's Creed Shadows.
week. It's got studio heads of the biggest AAA games out there scratching their heads, wondering how can they be getting outcompeted by some dude named Tyler that had a marketing budget of basically $0. It's almost like if you make a good enough game, you don't even have to try so hard to convince the players to buy it. In fact,
Exactly. As long as you make something fun and enjoyable, people are going to buy it. It's not that hard of a concept. This guy, look at the textures of this game. Look at this. Look at this. Honestly, like from a like graphical standpoint, this looks like trash. But it's people are loving it. I have not played the game. Maybe one day because I don't have a PC. So hopefully it comes to consoles. Tyler, please make it to console, please.
they might even go as far as recommending it to their friends, and that's how you end up with a massive viral success like Schedule 1. Now, the game's not without its flaws, and we'll get to my critiques in a second, but it's no surprise that the indie side of gaming has been exploding in popularity lately with how disappointing the big budget titles have been. It feels like every time you decide to buy the new Dragon Age or Assassin's Creed, you're just playing Russian roulette. You're praying not to throw your money down.
And that's why people are not buying them because they don't want to spend $70. Okay, they don't want to spend $70 and then 2 hours into the game, this is trash.
The drain with how some of these companies have been treating their consumers lately. And with Nintendo having just normalized $80 video games, 90 for physical cartridges, well, the
We've had that conversation already, and I'm sure we're gonna bring it up sometime in this video.
gaming community has just been leaning heavier and heavier into like these smaller projects that you can enjoy without having to break the bank. And as a direct response to that, we're seeing more and more indie projects turning small studios and solo developers into overnight sensations. A few good
Definitely
examples of this is a game about digging a hole that sold hundreds of thousands of copies back in February, and more recently, Repo, the Lethal Company inspired horror
This is
game,
another one that needs
broke
to come to consoles, man. They need to
270,000
bring it to
peak
console.
concurrence last month.
Please.
Indie hits are becoming more and more common because they're filling a gap that the AAA studios left behind, and we're going to talk about that. Schedule
It's not that hard. The gap is it's just fun. Creating a fun game. It's the fun because that's what video games are for.
1 basically just hit the ground running to an already staggering 68,000 concurrent players on release, and it's only kept going up from there all the way to a 400,000 concurrent peak, putting it in the top 3 most played games on
That's
Steam.
crazy, man.
There's no official number yet, but it's estimated that there's been over 2 million copies already sold, and even with the 30% cut that Steam gets from each sale, that
He
still
is
puts
swimming
the
in that
developer of
money,
Schedule 1,
man.
called Tyler, into multi-millionaire status literally overnight.
That's
and the crazy thing
insane,
about it
man.
is that Schedule 1 isn't just another sloppy asset flip game that was just loosely put together to try to bait the big streamers into playing it and getting this free wave of massive exposure. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about here when we're talking about this sort of game. But no, this is one of the very few cases where the developer actively undersold just how much content he packed into this game. I think the best way to describe Schedule 1, it's a resource management game. There's tons of moving parts to running a drug empire, and you have to find a way to optimize the workflow. And, if you're playing it in co-op, that makes it even funner because it's not like every single
That's also very key in the gaming industry. It's something that is missing. Fun games that are fun to play with friends. People don't understand how much of a socializing thing gaming is. I know people are like, "Why don't you just go outside and socialize with people?" Look, a lot of socializing happens in Discord, happens in party chats now. Now, I'm not saying like you don't hang out with your friends, but a lot of the times you hang out with your friends on Discord, on party chat. You guys are playing the same game. That's what's missing in the industry right now is fun co-op games that you could just get on with your friends and have a great time. I feel like a lot of games right now that you can play with your friends are PvP based, like we have Fortnite, we have Warzone. And sometimes it's hard for a group of friends to play those games consistently because of how sweaty it is. Sometimes you and your friends only play casually, and this is a great game because there's no sweatiness involved, there's no PvP. You guys are just put into a world like a sandbox and just have fun, just have at it.
Single player stuck doing the exact same thing. One person could be tending to the plants, the other one could be doing the baggies and the jars, or
Running a
one
whole
person could
business,
just be
man.
doing the runs or finding out how to craft different drugs. The players are just putting hours into Schedule 1, building their Breaking Bad type of empire, and it's no surprise why everybody keeps calling this game Walter White Simulator. It's a genuinely fun time that some of the players are even going as far as asking Tyler, the developer, to raise the price of the game and that they'd be willing to pay $50 for it.
Okay, let's bring up Mario Kart World again. Somebody just said raise its price. People are like, bro, this game should be worth way more. But how good it is. Okay, so let's see. This guy named Squid said, I'll pay $50. You should raise the price to around there. I mean, crap. He'd even pay $100. Obviously, Tyler said, I appreciate it, but I think $20 is fair. On release, I'm confident the game will be able to provide 15 plus hours of entertainment, not just mindless grinding. And man, props to Tyler, man. I think when the game popped off, he even put the game on sale. I think Tyler already knew. He's like, man, I've already made more than enough money for me to be set for life. And he's like, more people want to experience this game, so I'm gonna make it easier for people to experience the fun. I don't think Tyler made this game thinking that it would blow up. I think he sincerely made this game to create a fun experience for others. Now, going back to the Mario Kart World conversation, if the product is good, people will pay a high price for it. We've been saying for the last year that people would pay $120, $150 for GTA 6. They don't care if it's that much money. If it's that good of a game, it's going to provide that much content. People will pay whatever, honestly. And I actually have a buddy of mine who said that he actually treats hours in a video game by dollar amounts. So essentially $1 an hour. So I like a game like Mario Kart World. It's $80. I think you'd easily get 80 hours into it if you play online. Maybe even 100 hours. I think you definitely would get your money's worth. It's still to be seen, especially at that direct. But enough of that tangent. But anyways, people are like, this game is so good. If I know what I'm getting, people will pay more. And Tyler did undersell the game, but he wasn't out there to make the money. He was out there to make a fun experience, which
It's
is
because
which is
not
what's
just of the
missing.
amount of playtime that you get out of it, but because of the quality of Schedule 1 as well. Heck, the developer even went as far as giving out a free demo on Steam that could net you hours of gameplay, and I think it's one of the main reasons why people resonated so much with Schedule 1 and its developers, because in today's day and age, realistically, what kind of lunatic just gives away free hours of content for free like
Nobody.
that? It
Not
sounds like such
not
an
Nintendo.
anti-business practice that it would make a company like EA or Ubisoft have a complete
Oh,
meltdown
they're
because it's doing what AAA
fuming
stopped
at
doing
the
or
mouth.
caring about a long time ago.
They're
And the
losing their
reason why
minds,
they've been
man.
struggling so hard lately with consumer trust.
Well, it's
Schedule
because they
1
make
is
trash
putting the
games.
gamers first. It's prioritizing player enjoyment versus profit. And funny how that works at the end of the day, because it ends
That's
up
exactly
going
what I said.
all the way back around into being a genius business move, because now you're giving people the chance to try the game out. All the clips on social media just start popping up everywhere.
Exposure, easy
Everything's going
exposure.
viral, and as a result, it just spreads like wildfire through word of mouth. That's why when you compare this to like the current AAA lineup that we've seen throughout the year, Schedule 1 is just dwarfing games that were developed by hundreds of people. Now, obviously, Schedule 1 being the first ever project that this developer drops on Steam, it's on early access. It's not a hyper polished or flawless experience, okay? There's a few bugs here and there with the employees. The multiplayer has some issues with disconnecting, and some
Of
people
course,
are
it's
even
made by one
reporting their
person.
game crashing too. And for some people, that they see these sort of issues, and it sort of adds that level of charm that they're looking for when they're playing an indie game. Sometimes watching an NPC start spazzing out in front of you just adds that sense of comedy to your playthrough. But for the most part, when it comes to like the game crashes itself, that's a pretty frustrating thing to have to deal with. It's a completely different thing versus accidentally falling through the map and getting, at least getting a funny clip out of that. And if the players are paying for a game, they should be at least allowed to expect a stable experience, but it's not technically so bad that it's a deal breaker, because Schedule 1 right now wouldn't be sitting at overwhelmingly positive reviews on.
I think this game is probably more stable than Call of Duty Black Ops 6 ever will be. Let's just be honest. And really, it comes down. It's simple why people hate this game. Why? Well, not why people. Why these multi-million dollar companies like Ubisoft and EA would hate this game. They're getting one upped by one guy. I mean, it's an embarrassment for them. It's an embarrassment, and they want this game. They could if they could get Steam to delete this game off of Steam, they would do it in a heartbeat.
Steam if it
It's
was just a
jealousy.
piece
It's
of hot
envy.
garbo. Also, if you just happen to go through the patch notes for Schedule 1, Tyler, the developer, has been working on fixes for the game nonstop. You know, he's been pushing out updates
Dang
like
man, he's
crazy.
grinding,
I think it's important to note that this is just one person, right? Not a studio filled with 500
which
employees
is
that just happen to ship out
crazy,
a
man.
AAA broken mess for twice the price, and Tyler, the developer, is still managing to have a smoother launch than all of them.
I don't understand how these multi-million dollar companies with these thousands of employees can't get a stable launch. Like, what? One guy is seriously like embarrassing you guys? Like, are you serious? Instead of complaining, instead of wanting to take this video game down, yes, I think this game is. I think Tyler's going to go through a lawsuit. I think some other drug dealer simulator is mad that this game is successful and theirs isn't. Go figure. Instead of complaining and bashing the uh, uh, the developer that made this game, why don't you learn from them when something does something better than you? Instead of complaining and crying and whining about it, why don't you learn from them? Because if you're just complaining, if you're just gonna complain and be like, I don't understand why this game is so successful, and be mad about it, I got one thing to say to you: just get good. Just get good. That's all I gotta say.
while also having a roadmap of all the future content that he's planning to add into the game, like more drugs, more chemicals, and even a fishing minigame. There's also a little bit of controversy
More
surrounding
content
Schedule
still to
1 that
come.
popped up recently, because I saw that the publishers for Drug Dealer Simulator 1 and 2 decided to open up an investigation
Nope.
on a potential
There it
copyright
is.
infringement that Schedule 1 might have committed. The publishers are calling out Schedule 1 for committing an act of unfair competition, and now there's not a lot of
Oh
information
my
about this
god.
yet, and it's also not a direct
They're just mad because
accusation. It's
this
more of
game's
a,
better than
hey,
theirs.
we have a drug dealing game, but your drug dealing game just went absolutely viral. We're going to find out if you just happen to copy some of our stuff. And maybe there's some grounds to it, maybe not. I haven't played every single
I doubt there's any grounds to this. I just think they're mad because this is better. It's just that's that simple. This is better than their garbage.
drug dealing simulator game that's out there, so I can't tell you for myself if there's any similarities, but you know, it's just something we'll just have to wait and see. So to talk about the gameplay itself, Schedule 1 is basically a simulator game, meaning that there's a bunch of different ways to play it according to whatever your style is. So just because you saw someone on Twitch playing Schedule 1 doesn't mean that you're gonna do exactly what they do once you get your hands on it. You know, it's not a story type of game, not a single player kind of game where everybody just gets the same experience.
That's also what's so refreshing about this game. Is that not everybody's experience is going to be the same. Everybody's going to have a different experience. You play it like you want to. The game is not going to hold your hand. It's not going to be, okay, go do this, now go do this, now go do this. Schedule 1 just throws you in, from what it looks like to me, it just throws you in. The goal is to make money. However you're going to make that money, you make that money however you want to. There's endless amount of paths. Excuse me. There's endless amount of paths you can take to make your money. And I think games like that are so refreshing. Games that just throw you in. There's one main objective, but the game doesn't tell you how to get to that objective. The game kind of lets you figure it out on your own. Like, okay, this is the goal of the game. However you want to accomplish that goal is up to you. There's all these things you can do. Whatever you want to do, you can work your way towards that goal. Games that did that perfectly. Breath of the Wild was like one of the first ones I did it. Elden Ring took notes from Breath of the Wild, and Elden Ring kind of perfected that formula. Tears of the Kingdom, same thing. Those three games throw you into a world. Here's the goal of the game. You accomplish that goal as you please, and everybody just has a different experience. And it's just so refreshing. You're not overwhelmed with all these crazy things to do and all this, stupid UI that sucks in all these popular AAA games. Not
Also,
even
the idea of
popular.
adding co-op to this game, I think is also just a genius move in terms of
Yes,
marketability, because
absolutely.
this game isn't the type of game that needed to have co-op to begin with,
Nope.
but having that nice extra touch is a pretty good way of
No, it's
having
a great
Schedule
way to play
1
with
spread
friends.
more through word of mouth, because
Mm-hmm.
now you have friends wanting to get the games together and play together. And I think that
Exactly.
this is where Schedule 1 really shines, the multiplayer aspect of it, because you can have a totally controlled, totally efficient gameplay experience, or you can just have absolute mayhem happening in the city. The freedom in an open world and how the NPCs interact with you and how you can set up for some really entertaining emergent storytelling. You can actually end up accidentally sinking a couple of hours into the game and forget that there's plans you gotta tend to and sell. And the crafting system is really one of the main selling points for Schedule 1, because it feels very meticulous, but in a very satisfying way. You're not just pressing a button and things start automatically happening, like the plants plant themselves, the baggies get automatically packaged, or anything like that. It's a very satisfying, tactile sort of gameplay where every action has its own little consequence that you just gotta go through to really get that feeling of playing that resource management type game. And I really think that the one thing that ties all of this together is just the sheer stupidity of it all, man. The names that they use for some of the strains and the ingredients, like green crack, motor oil, horse semen, just seeing these and the effects that they have on the NPCs that you sell them to, it's just a blast, man. It's just really fun. Like, I remember reading that Tyler, the developer, wanted to go with these wacky names and use this fun-looking, cartoony aesthetic for Schedule 1, because he wants to take the serious topic that is substance and drugs, but make it less serious, make it less dark and gritty, and it
It's just fun. It's just simply be. It's like just to be funny, man. Just to be. It's a fun, funny game to play with friends. Like that's what video games are about. Is fun, which these multi-million-dollar companies do not understand anymore. All they think about is money, money, money. I understand it's a business, but this is why a guy like Tyler is absolutely just destroying them because he's about the fun.
just sets up for the game having some really funny dark humor interactions. So I think Tyler, the developer, made a game that perfectly fits the gap that a lot of AAA studios left behind when they started hyper-focusing on appealing investors, having monetization directors on board for single-player games, and just taking advantage of their player base, thinking that they would happily consume all of the slop that companies like Ubisoft and EA and the such just
Yeah,
put out, no
trash.
matter how unfinished and how unplayer-friendly it is.
Yeah,
And I think the
trash.
reason we're sort of seeing the second golden age for indie gaming at the moment is pretty simple. Indie developers aren't out of touch with the reality of what consumers want. They're making games that they're actually passionate about.
Exactly. It's because people that are making these indie games are normal people, just normal, ordinary people like you and I that are they're making games because they love video games.
That directly focus on player enjoyment and not necessarily on what an executive team of investors think the game will sell. If anything, the virality of how Schedule 1 spread over TikTok and over social medias is just proof that the players crave this sort of authentic connection with the game and its developers. They want something that feels like was made specifically for them. It's not that there isn't enough games to play out there, it's just that it's getting harder and harder to actually feel like something was made for you to enjoy instead of feeling like you're being marketed to. And that's why, even though there's talks about how there's a gaming downtrend happening at the moment, the indie side of things is doing just fine, because at the end of the day, it just boils down to people making cool shit online for people to enjoy.
Sorry.
And that's why there's studios out there pouring hundreds of millions of dollars and they can't even crack a 20,000 peak concurrence on release, while you have games like Schedule 1, for example, turning solo indie devs into overnight millionaires. But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about with you guys, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah.
Schedule 1
Oh, whoops. Sorry. Literally, what I like that what he said at the end. How gaming has kind of been in a decline. I know we've been hearing a lot of talks about is there going to be a video game crash? Is there going to be another video game crash? Um, and I thought about it, and I actually thought about it today, and I realized something. Um, I don't think there's going to be another video game crash. Not like the one that was seen like in the early '80s before Nintendo single-handedly saved the video game industry with the NES and Super Mario and all that. Not in that aspect, and simply because he mentioned indie games. Back then in the '80s and stuff, right before the video game crash, video game like creating video games was not as accessible as it is now. So I don't think we'll have a crash like the way we did then. A AAA studio crash, absolutely, it's gonna happen. I think it's inevitable at this point. I think companies like Ubisoft, EA, companies like that, I think they will see their companies crash. We've already seen massive layoffs, but guys like Tyler and maybe other small or maybe even other people that are creating video games, even smaller companies, I think can single-handedly lift up the industry out of the depths of hell. If they create fun experiences like this, people would just quit playing AAA games and just play games like this, especially because this game's like what, like $20? I mean, literally $20, and you get the amount of fun that this game is. I'm pretty sure people are shocked to hear that Schedule One is $20. They're like, "Oh yeah, this game. This game looks so fun. All these streamers are playing it. Wow, it looks like fun. I want to try it. How much is it? $20. $20. Sign me up." It's like, man, this game looks like so much fun, and it's so cheap. And meanwhile, you're getting charged for these AAA games that are like $70. Now we're going to see $80 games. Thanks, Nintendo. Nintendo games are going to be good. The $80 price point might be justified. I don't know. But then you're going to have companies like Ubisoft and EA. They're going to be like, oh, yeah. Yeah, look at our trash game. Here's $80. Hey, we're going to charge you $80, $90. And it's like, bro, your game's trash. You got a guy like Tyler who's one guy making a video game who's absolutely decimating the industry. I love to see it. It needs to happen more. It does. And I hope that other small, indie developers or even single creators, guys like Tyler, that are just making games because they enjoy video games, and I hope that more of these games gain traction. So yeah.